Hello and welcome to the PocketGamer.biz podcast Week in Mobile Games, where we chat about the week's news and provide some insights. I'm Craig Chapple, Head of Content at PocketGamer.biz. With me today is our Deputy Editor Paige Cook and our News Editor Aaron Astle. How you both doing? Aaron, what have you been up to?
Been a fairly quiet week for me. I've been enjoying, and we'll come back to this later, I'm sure, but I've been playing the anniversary stuff around Fire Emblem Heroes, because it's just turned 9 years old this week.
Of course.
A day one player who's stuck with it. So I'm a big Fire Emblem fan anyway. It does a better job of embodying the main series than Fire Emblem Shadows has done. I haven't touched that one for a while. But yeah, Heroes still play every day. And yeah, just been trying to keep up with everything because they've really thrown a lot out for this anniversary, and daily maps to do and free gacha pulls every day for the first time, because they've brought back loads of old banners that are rotating every day. I think it's like 66 old banners that are coming back over this month. And on the kind of summoning section, as you click through the different banners, there's a little dot at the bottom of the screen to indicate like which banner you're looking at. You know, you might be on like the third dot out of 10 or something. But there's so many at the minute that for the first time they actually go off screen. Like, I don't know whether some phones are just wider and it's still displayed, but I was clicking through and it's like I can't even see like what, my dot has long since gone off the edge of the screen and I'm still going through more banners and it's not circled back to the start yet. Which, yeah, it's just, so this must be the most they've ever had active at one time.
You can't see them in the end, right? You can't scroll through.
So you scroll through and you're now on a different one, but just there's normally a little visual indicator of how far through the list you are, and you just go off the edge of the screen and you're still going. So
it's not ideal.
So it's not a bad problem to have, but yeah, I'll be interested to see whether that actually kind of gets people spending, because there's so much to spend on at the minute. Anyway, as I say, I think we'll come back to this topic later, but yeah, that's been my last couple of days playing that.
Right, thanks Aaron. Paige, what have you been up to?
I feel quite boring because I haven't really been up to anything at all. I had a friend over at the weekend and she stayed for a few days, so I feel like during the week I've just been relaxing. I do this weekend want to go to the cinema though, but I'm deciding still on what I want to see. I'm either going to go and see Iron Lung, which we'll talk more about later, or I'm going to go and see Send Help. I haven't decided which one yet.
Which one do you want to support? That's the real question.
Well, I want to see both. It's just a case of which one do I see this time. Or maybe I should just do back-to-back, go from like one cinema room, finish it, and then straight into another screen. Don't think I've done that since I was like a teenager, though.
Hollywood versus YouTube. What are you going to do? Cool. Yeah, I actually want to see that. Yeah, we'll talk about it a bit more in a bit. Yeah, it does look really good. Really interesting. Thanks, Paige. So, as for myself, yeah, again, probably not that much. But one thing I did do is I watched, I think it's an old Netflix movie at this point. I watched a film called Brick, which the central premise is like, it's kind of a cross between, like, I love kind of stupid B-movie stuff. This isn't really a B-movie. And then you get the other side is, not the other side, but then there's another thing, like, you kind of get Netflix movies. If you tell someone it's a Netflix movie, I think in my mind that means it's very okay, right? It's like, oh, it's a Netflix movie, so you know you're going to get something that's got average. So Brick, the central premise is that they wake up one morning and all their windows, the door, it's just got these layers of like these bricks, and then they can't get out of the place. You can't drill through it, you can't like destroy it, and so it's for 2 hours. It's how do we get out? And it's quite interesting. Like, I actually quite like the central premise, which feels very B-movie, but this one has like a bigger budget. But then it's like there's some good bits, and then there's like some lulls, as in not laughing. And then it's just like, I don't know, it was alright. I'll probably forget about it in like a couple of weeks. That kind of film. If you want something different, kind of interesting, the end was kind of cool. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Right, we're on a time limit today, so we're going to get cracking on. As always, a few shout outs to some of our events coming up. So we've got PGC San Francisco on March 9th. We're going to Dubai May 20th, 21st. We're going to Malmo, Sweden in May. On June 15th, 16th, we're going to Barcelona. Shanghai, July 30th. Helsinki, October 30th and 14th. Bangkok, October 27th. Jordan in November, Kerry Islands in December, got the Mobile Games Awards in August. So lots going on events-wise. So if you're interested in any of those, check out the site, pgconnects.com. And also, we've got a top 30 US mobile game makers list coming out in March. We're going to release that alongside GDC Week and PGC San Francisco. It's quite a tight turnaround on that. So if you want to be considered to be on the list, we've got lobbying open. That actually ends on Monday night. So if you want to be in that, please fill in the form. Right, so I'm going to kick off with the big news of the week, or I guess just right at the end of last week, just after we recorded. So Google has kind of launched Project Genie. So what is Project Genie? It's available to Google AI Ultra subscribers in the US, and the tech is basically, it's like a world-building AI generative technology. So you can build virtual worlds through text prompts and uploaded images. You could choose your perspective, such as first person or third person, and then take your control of that character to navigate this space. At present, it can only generate worlds that last for 60 seconds, and it builds them as you walk through them. So I guess nothing is like kind of completely set, so as you go through it kind of keeps generating. It's powered by Genie 3, Nano Banana Pro, and Gemini. So after this kind of launch, and there's this blog post, videos on the Google site, and I've seen a bunch of people sharing demos around. They look kind of cool. Someone did like a GTA in Greenland, because obviously. And then someone did like you play as a cigarette box on an underground station. Why not? And again, they only last for 60 seconds. So the result of this was that investors who, as we're going to, I guess, know nothing about games really. We call them investors. You could call them traders. As it, like, I can't remember the term. It's like day trading. Maybe they're not serious investors, or maybe some are. I don't know. Anyway, shares in Take-Two, Roblox, Unity, Capcom, I think maybe some others fell after. Unity in particular felt the kind of the bite of that, or felt the brunt of it. So Unity shares fell as much as 24%. So this was announced Thursday, and that happened on Friday. Roblox fell 13%, and none of these stocks have recovered. If you care for such things, it probably doesn't make that much difference to the actual company. So what are actual developers saying? StoryGround CEO Andrew Green said while Google's DeepMind, which is making the tech, because the company behind it was actually based in the UK. Demis Hassabis, who worked on Theme Hospital for a bit of lore, he said it was doing some genuinely impressive research, but the market reaction tells you everything about how little Wall Street understands about games. So some quick quotes really, but here's what people keep missing about games. Rendered spaces means nothing without design. The variables that make open worlds social, fun, replayable, meaningful are essentially infinite. Physics, economy, progression, social, narrative, emergent behavior, balance, the stuff that makes you feel something. You can't prompt your way into that. Not yet, not for a very long time. Is this pointing towards something? Absolutely. This is like finding coal in 1000 BC and someone squinting really hard at envisioning the Industrial Revolution. The direction is right, the timeline is not what traders think. The fundamental value prop of world models is real and exciting, but if you're selling a game company stock because a 60-second laggy, inconsistent tech demo that forgets its own paint trails, you don't understand what games actually are. Unity CEO Matthew Bromberg was also kind of, I guess, on the PR push about this. Seeing the share slide, he has to say something publicly, and he says rather than viewing this as a risk, we see it as a powerful accelerator. And he's talking about kind of video-based generation. It's exactly the type of input our own agentic AI workflows are designed to leverage. So he's like trying to build up Unity's tech in general, because they've obviously been hit hard over the last few years with their own PR disasters, whilst also saying, I think, trying to basically say, but Google's stuff isn't it. I think it's quite a fine line that they have to draw there. But obviously Unity does like loads more. We had some other comments. As for myself, just a couple things that I think, yeah, it's a tech demo. And I think, so one of the things you can do with this is worlds that other people create, you can build on that and make your own thing on top of that. Obviously, this is just a tech demo stage. You don't know how any kind of tech would roll out to developer use or public use in the future. But I think imagine Google's dream scenario where you could make these games. I think it would raise questions about what you actually own, what a creator owns. So if you made a game and you tried to sell it, can someone else just basically add add a different character and sell the same game. It's just something, I think the legality of it is something to think about. Obviously, with generative AI, there's other legal issues that we've discussed. Eric Kress from Gossamer Consulting and Deconstructor Fund said this, but like, does Google have actually the willpower to stay in this and keep investing? With Stadia, it did not. And I think it actually has a history of this anyway. I remember speaking with someone once that kind of said the same thing. It like about something else. I can't remember what it was, but it was like something like this could just end up getting kind of forgotten, still around for a few years, effectively mothballed with minimal investment, and then it just gradually disappears. I'm skeptical that Google would stay with something in gaming specifically, when really the potential is AI tools to maybe do something a bit bigger. Practically speaking, if I was really thinking about it, like, it's one thing, again, having a 60-second tech demo of a video, or you could make this whole world, but is that actually playable on all devices? What's the file size of that? Can I play it on a 5-year-old device, or do I have to play it on top of the range now? And again, kind of like what was just said, but you can't prompt your way into a GTA, right? There's a reason why games take years to make. It's more than just building a world, like, from a prompt. It's about tight controls, fun, a coherent world, in some cases story. It's not like visually, mechanically, or stylistically going to create something brand new either. So I think it's interesting. Any thoughts? I know, Paige, you've been speaking to a few people about it.
Yeah, we reached out to a few people just to get their general thoughts. A lot of their responses were quite long, so I'll just pick out a few bits. So Martine Spence said, as a first reaction, I'm both mind blown and nervous at the same time. What would it mean if creating a game is really this easy? Probably an even bigger overload of mediocre games without a proper storyline or refreshing and balanced gameplay, which kind of mimics some of what you just said there. And then Stuart DeVille, again, just kind of picking out bits of what he said. He said that where Genie 3 and similar systems showed genuine promise is in rapid prototyping and exploratory design. A significant portion of game development consists of work that is ultimately discarded, and accelerating this phase without consuming the time and energy of skilled artists represents a meaningful productivity gain. But then he goes on to say, but the risk lies in misunderstanding both the tool and the landscape in which it is deployed. When speed is mistaken for creativity, or when generative outputs are treated as authored work rather than provisional material, the result is overuse and creative flattening. And then one more quick one. Oscar Clarke went into some good detail, but he kind of summarized at the very end and just like a little bit. And he said that in general, super interesting, but there's a lot more I'd need to see to have confidence that this will ultimately change how we make games. That being said, I think tools like this will deliver some really interesting innovations in how quickly we can realize new gaming concepts. So yeah, I think a lot of those opinions sort of bounce off a lot of what you said there. I think the idea of it is interesting. It's interesting technology, but the actual real ramifications of use cases for it, I'm a little bit skeptical about personally.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I didn't mention there, that I mentioned before, is just it's really become part of the course of tech companies these days to release something that just isn't actually ready. So this technology is not actually ready for real practical use. It's impressive, but like Apple did it with, or any company really kind of did it with VR headset, or like when you see augmented reality glasses kind of come out, it's like, it's impressive. It's not ready. So please stop releasing stuff that's not ready just to raise the stock price. Give us something that we can actually use that's useful now. Like, yeah, I won't get on a soapbox about it again, but I kind of get sick of hype. Right, so yeah, anyway, lots of interesting commentary about Project Genie. We'll see where that all goes. As I say, at the moment at least, and I think for the foreseeable, it's hype. We'll see if it becomes something practical that Unity actually has to worry about, for example. Right, so next up, Aaron, what have you got?
Yeah, so bringing it back to Fire Emblem Heroes, I did a bit of a data dive earlier this week into like how the series is done over the years. It's famously, I suppose, it's Nintendo's biggest mobile success. It's the only title in their catalogue to have surpassed 1 billion in lifetime player spending. Obviously, as a big accomplishment, and this Fire Emblem game's done it where the Mario Kart mobile game didn't, and Animal Crossing didn't. These bigger franchises. So I think it speaks to how kind of Nintendo Intelligent Systems DNA actually leaned into what works for mobile with this game. And so AppMagic estimates suggest that it's exceeded 1.2 billion in lifetime earnings. That's since the 2nd of February 2017, which does sort of reflect quite a dramatic slowdown from its peak like back in the day. So like its first year is still the strongest year that Heroes has had, and it's generally declined most years since then. It's like in year one it made 265 million, and then that fell to 234-ish million in year two, so that was about 12% down. Then it went to 155 million in year three, so that was a 34% decline. It had a very small rise in year four, which kind of lined up with the lockdowns, and obviously a lot of games benefited from that. And also there was a big kind of main series release during year three. So year four was kind of the first full year to benefit from that. So it was Three Houses, which is the best-selling game in the series. So I think that was a big benefit for the game. And they also introduced kind of like a season pass-ish thing, kind of like a subscription service to get kind of extra exclusive like character art and bonus items each month and various like quality of life perks. So they kind of made some changes in year four that did actually kind of stave off that decline. But yeah, since then it's declined every year since, which is a little depressing to see as someone who's really fond of this game, and I hope it sticks around forever. But seeing that year 9 again was another decline is puts me a little bit on edge. But it's still making millions. It made just shy of 50 million in the past year, so that was only like 18% of what it did in year one, but it's still 50 million, I guess, as long as the revenue it brings in is more than the cost of running it. Like Nintendo said, it mostly views mobile games as like a marketing thing anyway for their console games. And there's a new game coming out for Switch 2 this year, so I'm hopeful that they mean that and the game's going to stick around even if it's not making as much money as it used to. They have actually made a change recently that also worries me a little bit, which is that you used to get, so with roughly every other kind of gacha banner that would come out, there would be an event alongside it where you could get a new character for free. So there'd kind of be 4 main ones on the banner, and then there'd be a 5th one that everyone can get by playing the game enough, basically. And they're not doing the 5th character anymore. That's just not a thing now, so you don't get the free one. Instead, if you do that event, you get an old character from like 4 years ago that used to be premium. So obviously there's no cost of getting an artist to do it and voice actors doing the lines and stuff. So that feels like a cost-cutting measure that worries me a little bit. But it still made like 50 million in the last year, so it's not to say like it's totally crashed and burned. I hope that it's going to stick around for some time longer. And certainly, like I said in kind of the intro, we've got Fire Emblem Shadows as well on mobile now, which hasn't made nearly as much of an impact. So it's been out for 4 months now, and it's made just over 500,000, which compared to Heroes making sort of 250 million in year one, 500,000's not that great in 4 months.
It's impressive that it's been around this long. My Shadows, I don't even know why they're really bothering or pretending to bother. It's obviously going to be shut down. It's my guess. It doesn't even seem to have I guess I don't know the actual figures. Probably not enough players to even keep it going anyway. It's not speaking to the quality of the game, just how it's been received. But it's kind of proof that like Nintendo is just out of mobile now, really, except for this one game, basically. And I wish they'd just be honest about it. Whereas before they were like, no, we're still doing mobile stuff. And then the thing they dropped was Shadows, which takes none of the lessons from Fire Emblem Heroes and all of the lessons from their failures to basically not make a proper mobile game. But there you go. They don't need to either. It all came about because, again, the Wii did badly. Sorry, the Wii U.
Yeah, the Wii U
did badly, specifically. The Wii did great. Anyway. Yeah. Right, so next up, Paige, what have you got?
So both of my stories actually are kind of transmedia stuff. But first up, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Supercell, who have announced that Lil Wayne is going to headline a virtual halftime show inside Clash Royale. And I don't know why things like this still take me by surprise. Like when I saw the release, I was just like, what? It's just in Clash Royale. That seems so random. But then when I think about it, I'm like, no, it's a pretty established thing now. Musical artists ending up in games. So the event is on the 6th, which as of recording is tomorrow. So it'll be inside Clash Royale Arena. So it's like a fully watchable in-game virtual concert. Obviously, like, my mind goes to things like Fortnite. Like they've had so many of these. They had like, Ariana Grande, Eminem, like so many big names. And then recently there was a Bruno Mars concert inside Roblox, inside Steal a Brain Rot, and that pulled in, it was 12.8 concurrent users, which is pretty huge. So obviously like it does work.
You mean million?
A million, yeah. So like just insane. But the part I find really interesting is just sort of like the broader cultural shift of it all. Like music and games, like it's a collaboration we see a lot, but I do think that in recent years I feel like music gets as much out of it as the game does. We also did a story earlier in the week that was about stuff like fandoms and things and like followings, and the demographics that are super popular for stuff like that just happen to be the demographics that are really popular for games like this, for games that, like Roblox, Fortnite. So if you're, an artist, maybe you're debuting a new song or something like that, having it in a game is a good way of just having more people tune in and listen to it, and maybe you'll get a few new fans along the way. And I think it also kind of works the other way too. I feel like we see a lot more real world events from video game music. Like there's so many concerts that I see now, like, symphonies from certain games, and they're selling out entire like concert halls. So I guess the popularity works the other way around too, which is quite interesting. But in terms of Clash Royale, I am intrigued to see how it works for a game like this. I'm obviously like, Roblox, UGC, Fortnite, same kind of thing. That's its own kind of game. So I'm intrigued to see if it drives any sort of meaningful engagement. Like I said, the Roblox one, like that obviously, worked really well for them. So I don't know how it will work for Clash Royale in the same way. So I am intrigued to see about that. But in general, yeah, for me, it's just like that cultural shift as like I see these things and I'm always like, oh, that seems so random, but it really doesn't. It's quite normal now to have these big virtual concerts inside games.
Yeah, you make a really good point there. I hadn't really thought about it, but it is actually normal now.
Yeah.
Whereas a couple of years ago or a few years ago, I would have said like, what?
Yeah, like when I was like in my teens, if I was playing a game and it's like, oh no, one of your favorite artists is just in the game, I'd be like, what? Like that wouldn't have even been something I'd have entertained. Whereas now it's like, oh yeah, Ariana Grande is just popping up in Fortnite or something like that. Like that's normal now.
Was it like Usher just randomly appeared at like E3 or something once? Whereas now it'd be like, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think you see that a lot as well, like with events and celebrities on stage. I feel like you would have never seen that before, whereas now it's like they want to be there. Like it's great for them to be on a game stage kind of thing, whereas before I feel like a lot of Hollywood, I don't know, maybe this is a presumption, like, oh no, games were kind of beneath them type of thing, whereas now it's cool to be in games, and like that shift is just is completely changed.
Right. Thanks for that, Paige. So my next story is just a quick one, which is a company called Ares Interactive has raised $70 million in a Series A investment round to expand its operations and launch a new baseball game in 2026. If you don't know who Ares Interactive are, they're a company founded by the former Glue Mobile CEO, Niccolo De Masi, and is headed up by President Mike Dillette, who's previously worked at Mattel and Scopely, the latter as the SVP of Strategic Partnerships. It's a developer and publisher. It wants to make cross-platform free-to-play games, founded in 2024. It has studios in San Francisco, one called Seventh Inning, and in Berlin, Swift Games. It's already operating some live games, so one of them is the survival roguelike RPG Heroes and Hordes, which is said to have 30 million installs to date. And I guess the big title it's working on is Baseball Hits 26. So while they're cross-platform at the moment, they kind of actually seem to be focusing on mobile. Just quickly as well, the funding round was led by General Catalyst with participation from its own executive chairman, De Masi. Currently, they have a team of 50 staff, and they aim to scale through a mix of acquisitions and building games with, quote, smart, nimble senior teams. One of the things that they said they're going to be big on is AI, and I guess somewhere in the workflow, which I guess everyone has to say now in their pitch decks for investment. The main interesting thing for me, which I think makes this really interesting, is it really goes back to its Glue Mobile roots. So their big game is that they're going to make is Baseball Hits 26, which I think is coming out this year. And Delayet said, no other baseball title has truly replaced the audience or revenue that MLB's Tap Sports Baseball generated. So I asked him about that specifically, which is Glue Mobile's old series. They released one a year, and each year it was doing better, doing really well. And Glue actually used to have like quite detailed financial reports that would show the data. But then Glue got bought by EA for $2.1 billion, and EA proceeded to destroy all of the value from Glue Mobile, as we know. One of the things that they did, despite EA Sports kind of becoming quite a focus really for EA, they ditched the MLB the Tap Sports Baseball series. Maybe there were some licensing issues there or something, but ultimately that kind of went away. It didn't stop them with FIFA, right? And then Mike said, so the demand for MLB taps. He said that demand didn't disappear for baseball games. Our team has been working in this space for a long time, and we believe it delivers fun, accessible, highly engaging experience that the market has been missing. I just think that's a really interesting one, and big investment not going to Turkey, going to the US, and not going into Web3, going into kind of AI-ish, but going into a company that has a lot of experience in doing mobile games and this is cross-platform, but at the moment, very, very into mobile. So yeah, big investment, and largely going to the US there. So really cool. Aaron, what else have you got?
So my other story this week is about Nintendo's financials, which have just come out, and particularly, obviously, there's a focus on the Switch 2, which has officially sold 17.37 million units in just over half a year. So as per the financials, Q3 was the Switch 2's best quarter yet. That included kind of the holiday period, obviously benefiting from Christmas. So that's up to December. Presumably the Switch 2 sold even more by now. I guess for context, looking back, so like in Q1, the Switch 2 sold about 5.8 million units. It was only around for about a month of that quarter. Q2, it surpassed 10 million. So Q3 in 17.37 means Q3's been its best month yet, or best quarter yet, sorry. And it's currently beating the Switch's pace of sales and remains the fastest selling console in history. So that's, pretty good going. I'm still personally kind of surprised that it's beating the Switch's launch, just in terms of like the games lineup. And there was some controversy around the kind of full unveiling of like how expensive like the Switch 2 games are and the console itself. So looking back at the Switch launch, you had like Breath of the Wild, a Mario Kart, and a 3D Mario game all in year one, which maybe that's my own bias, but that feels like a stronger lineup than another Mario Kart, Donkey Kong, and a Kirby racing game for Switch 2. But clearly, people are buying it. It's selling very well. Speaking of the original Switch, though, it also became Nintendo's best-selling console in Q3, based on like lifetime sales. I think in Q2, like at the end of the second quarter, it was about 10,000 units behind the DS. So it was inevitable that this quarter was going to see it, finally become the biggest Nintendo console of all time, which it has now done. It's only got the PS2 to go since they sort of moved the goalposts of where the PS2 sales were a couple of years ago when the Switch was catching up originally. But yeah, so clearly, the Switch family then of consoles has been huge for Nintendo. The Switch 2's also, you were mentioning the Wii U earlier, Craig, the Switch 2's already outsold the Wii U. So in like basically 6 months, it's beaten 4 years of the Wii U being the flagship console. Yeah, it's because the Wii U was about 13.6, and I say the Switch 2's at like 17.4 roughly. So yeah, it's quite a stark turnaround from like a decade ago. Also, the original Switch, they said in the financials, has now surpassed 1.5 billion software sales, which obviously that's another huge milestone. Yeah, I am curious as to whether it's going to be able to catch up and overtake the PS2. Currently, the Switch is at about 155.5 million, and then the PS2's at, I think, a bit of a nebulous, like 160 million. So obviously most people are buying the Switch 2 now, and the original Switch hasn't gone down in price. So I think if it did, it would quite easily beat the PS2. As a Nintendo fanboy while not having a Switch 2, I'm rooting for the Switch to become the best-selling console, industry-wide. And I also saw, I can't verify this because I couldn't actually find any sources for it, but doing some kind of peak journalism of citing Wikipedia.
Nice.
They allege or claim that Nintendo consoles, like across Nintendo's whole history, have now reached 998 million sales. So if that's true, I'd keep an eye out for an announcement from Nintendo of being like the first company to sell 1 billion consoles in the near future. I tried to find some source for where that came from. I found like Nintendo put up a post in like 2015, 16-ish saying they were in like the 800 millions, and obviously the Switch has come about since then. So like it must be somewhere around that number, but yeah, I imagine they are coming up on 1 billion console sales, which is crazy.
That's impressive. I was just wondering when you were saying that, like, if they'd have called the Wii U the Wii 2, would it have done better? I mean, again,
it probably would.
Like motion.
I was going to say, just the confusion of it, because you had all the Wii accessories, like the Wii Fit balance board and, the Wii
console
remote
was the same.
accessories, and the console looks the same. Because you could get you could get like the lightsaber extension for the Wii remote and like a gun extension, I think, for certain games and things. I think there were too many like Wii somethings that then just calling it the Wii U wasn't clear enough that was like the next gen console.
I remember covering it at the time, and I think a lot of journalists were very confused just by the announcement. It's not even just consumers. Journalists were like, "So what is it? Is it the next console? Is it like a now you could say it would be like, oh, is it like the PS Pro, which I don't think was a thing at the time.
Right.
I don't think so. So yeah." But yeah, well done to Nintendo for the Switch thing. Paige, what else have you got?
My other story, linking back to what my weekend plans might be. So, one of the more interesting box office stories is the live action adaptation of Iron Lung, which, being completely honest, I had never heard of the game Iron Lung, but it's turned out to be quite a breakout hit for the adaptation. So it's pulled in over 21 million in its opening weekend, and I believe the budget is around the 3 million mark, so that's a pretty huge result. And it only had like a limited international viewing, it's not been everywhere either, so obviously, that has an impact too. Obviously we talk about transmedia stuff a lot, but obviously usually it's these big studios are investing like, hundreds of millions in these things, but behind this is a name most people recognize, which is the YouTuber Markiplier. And I used to watch him years ago, but I don't know, maybe I just outgrew my YouTube phase. So I hadn't watched anything for him in years. Yeah, just interesting of all the Let's Plays that he's done. And I think, when I used to watch him, at least, he did focus a lot on like horror games. It's interesting that of all of them, this is what he chose to make a movie about. You can get the game on, I think it's like PC, Switch, PS5, and then I noticed you can get it on Android as well. You can't get it on iOS, but I have brought it. I think it's like £1 something. So this is why I'm not sure if I'm going to see it at the weekend, because I feel like when I like watch things that have been games, I like to be able to play the game first. I feel like it just has a better impact. So we'll see if I get through it. Apparently it's quite short, so I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, I think with this one, it's a different sort of angle on the broader transmedia stuff. Like I said, usually it's these big production companies. This is kind of like a small indie creator-led type thing. I know that sounds silly when it's so like millions that have gone into it, but in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to films, that is, that's quite a small production. And I guess it's a smart thing as well, because obviously he's already got this pre-built fan base that I guess just because he's doing it, lots of his fans would just go and see it anyway. So yeah, I just thought it's quite interesting. I'm intrigued to see it. I thought I've seen like the trailer, which is interesting, and like I said, I knew nothing of the game other than when I had a quick look into it. I know they're on a submarine, and I think most of the film is just set in this tiny space. So yeah, I think going forward, it makes me wonder if maybe we'll see more stuff like this. If there'll be, obviously if this has been successful, is that just because Markiplier is this huge name? Or do we see more sort of content creators, influencers doing smaller budget things? Because the game, I think it was just developed by one person. So, they're a lot more likely to offer up their IP that, like I said, some people have probably never heard of Iron Lung. If you've got someone like Markiplier being like, oh, let me make this into a movie, they're going to say yes. So, yeah, I'm intrigued to see if this sets off like a new trend of more people doing these little passion projects that then potentially could make it really big.
Yeah, I don't know much about the film world, but this story, because I think you mentioned it, and I was like, I've never heard of this. What is this? And then I was like, okay, this is quite a big. It's quite a big deal. Like I said, I don't know much about the film world, but as kind of said at the start, it feels like it's very much YouTube versus Hollywood. It feels like, yeah. I like you say, I'm keen. I'm interested to know whether it can even be replicated, because I could see someone easily throwing 3 million at a project and it doesn't do well. I mean, obviously, I hope people chase their passions and whatever, right? And if they want to put money to a project that may or may not do well, then power to them. If it made its money back, you could say that's still a success. Still got to do it. But in this case, it might make like 10x return.
I haven't watched him in years, but I think that he stars in it. I think he directs it. Maybe he has done other stuff since I sort of stopped following him, but yeah, kind of nowhere. I'm gonna make this film, I'm gonna star in it, I'm gonna direct it, and then it's actually turned out pretty well. Yeah. So yeah, it's just a cool little story, I think.
Yeah, fascinating. It says a lot for big budgets as well, which is a similar thing that the games industry is kind of contending with, right? It's these projects that cost like 300 million that make X return, whereas could you make a really successful title that gets globally well known on a small budget like this? So yeah. Very interesting times. Right, that brings us to the end of the Week in Mobile Games podcast. So thank you very much, Aaron and Paige, for all your insights this week.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to be here.
Great to have you on the show. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.